For a while now, I've been studying videos online concerning lootings in different cities. And you even see it on a larger scale out here in the Pacific Northwest in Portland, but lesser in Seattle, but it's still an issue. Where more so in Seattle, it's one of those things that people will start to riot, and then rioting gives over to looting, whereas in Portland people are just all and out looting. And out here in the Northwest, crystal meth is a big issue, so that may play a role in it. Of course, in Seattle there are still stores that have closed because a lot of people were stealing from them. Back then we had a Bed Bath and Beyond that was fantastic, and it even had an escalator that you can go up and down. And so many people, I think, were doing drugs in there that it closed. That devastated me. I can remember the early 2000s and before the 2010s shopping in there, even up to the 2010s shopping there. And the point is, this looting is costing everybody. We're all tired of you, those of you who are doing it. So here's the thing. Let me address two things about when it comes to being a thief. First off, because I'm addressing this to the black community mostly, but I know people of other races will watch, and that's fine. They'll say this isn't necessarily racial. No, it's not, but some things disproportionately affect certain people. So let's get something straight. Being a thief has nothing to do with your skin color, okay? The act itself is not a skin color thing, because I read stuff online and people make it seem like looting is synonymous with being black. And I understand based on the coverage why some people think that. But I'm black and I've been on this earth almost 44 years as of the time of this recording, because I turned 44 in January. I'm making this in December, but you won't see it till February 2024. And I have never gone into a store and stole anything. But I've worked retail, and I can tell you, when people were getting arrested back when I was working retail for 2 years, there was a time when loss prevention could hold you until the cops arrived. And you see a plethora of thieves. You see different backgrounds of people who are thieves. You just couldn't actually say, well, this group of people might do this, this, and this, because different people of different races were going in that office and coming out in handcuffs. To be fair, this is when cops could also do their job. So you could be locked in the store for loss prevention to wait for the cops, do your interrogation, whatever, they take you away. So this is not that video for you to equate stealing with a certain race of people. Now, for my second point before I get into this, I also realize that having a drug problem and stealing has nothing to do with race. Meaning that a lot of these people, it's easier to walk in stores now with the opioid crisis and steal, because the loss prevention can no longer do their job. I think that's a good thing. I think that always should have been handled by cops. You just have better surveillance and sophistication. And people might argue, oh, that's not a solution, but it is. It's better than a loss of life. I've never been an advocate that loss prevention go and chase people down. I just think you have enough surveillance around you, if you can, to where cops can identify certain vehicles and certain types of people based on height and etc. But this whole defund the police, that's what happens. You got thieves now brazenly walking out of buildings because they know you're not going to do anything to them. And we have to question where that comes from, and we have to reconcile that defund the police, that means demonizing law enforcement entirely, plays a role in this. And we need more drug prevention programs for the harder stuff, but let's have a frank conversation. Having a drug addiction doesn't give you the right to steal. But That kind of thieving comes out of desperation. And if people are going to let you walk out of the stores, I mean, it is what it is. Number 3, and the last thing, let's get something straight. The thieving due to these cowardly groups gathering in groups of anything from 3 to 50 to over 100 people storming stores. You are cowards. I don't care who that offends. I don't care about your offense. If you don't like it, get off my channel. Or the people going in and just taking stuff out of desperation because they want to feed a drug habit. Quit hiding behind COVID-19 and the rise in prices as an excuse. If you go even on here on YouTube, you can go and find videos where people were doing this stuff pre-COVID, way before we knew a COVID-19 was coming. Stop hiding behind COVID to excuse your thievery. Y'all were thieving then. Prices were going up, but they were still manageable. So stop hiding behind COVID-19. Oh, COVID's the reason we're doing this now. No. Selfishness and a small tinge of desperation are why you do it. Because you don't care when you're taking something that prices are going to go up for the rest of us. You don't care when you're taking things. And people in those communities who those stores were convenient on bus lines and things are now going to lose jobs and have to transfer further from where they are. You just don't care. See, the reason I made this for Black Americans is because when they play these videos on the national news disproportionately, they're playing your groups out twerking in Chicago, out looting and acting a fool in Philadelphia. It doesn't matter that you don't feel like you should be targeted based on your skin color, simply because propaganda is a very powerful thing, and they're going to play what they want the public to see. And see, the problem is people within the community are going to suffer because, oh, you look like the person that could have stolen this. So then you get an epidemic of people getting pulled over for something they had no participation in just because they looked like you. And it is the look-alike that we need to discuss. So everybody probably listening what's your point of this rant? I'm going to discuss one thing that I think is 2 hypotheticals I think is going to happen in the future. And something I've been paying attention to for a while. So there's a YouTuber that I fairly watch every once in a blue moon when I have time. I won't say her name. And she brought up something that I had noticed but hadn't paid much attention to, and it's called master planned communities. When you look at the schematics, see, I always burp when I make these videos. It's something about once I start recording that I got acid reflux. I would advise all of you, because you see it on commercials too, where they're building these new communities, and in these new communities you see schematics of where houses are going to go, and within these communities they're going to have grocery stores and their own little maybe shops and things like that. And these micro communities will be manageable enough to where they're going to know who lives there and who doesn't. And people can say, well, we can argue those communities exist now. Yes, there are gated communities, but not all of them have their own shopping centers and things. My theory on this one, which is this first thing, master plan communities, is that they're allowing people to do this looting and get by with it because they're going to close the stores they're closing now and reopen some in the master planned communities. Because with the surveillance they're going to start to set up, if you don't belong there, they're going to know right away and have mechanisms to keep you locked down until law enforcement can take you away. Because quite frankly, people have already lost their patience with your thieving. They're just going to put those high-end stores in safer neighborhoods to where if you don't live in that neighborhood, unless you're visiting with someone, it's going to be immediately apparent that you don't belong there. Again, I would advise everybody to Google master planned communities, and you'll see the schematics and you'll see exactly what I'm discussing here. My number two and my final thought on this is that within the black community, we got what's called no snitch. See, people know who's committing these crimes. They're organized. They have groups. They know what stores they're going to hit. So I bet they are sending people to scout and see who's the most vulnerable. The sad one was the guy, I think it was either the Gucci store or the Nordstrom store somewhere in California, where the security guard or the loss prevention was on the phone with the cops as the people were running. I think it was a Gucci or maybe Louis Vuitton. And that's all he could do because he's advised not to chase them. What I think is going to happen in the future is that they're going to start raising the incentives to see who in those groups are going to run their mouth and tell on people. Because I watched one cast, and I forgot what city it was, where it was like there's $1,000 reward, which to me is a joke. You can't offer somebody $1,000 when these people are still in merchandise that's way over the price of that $1,000. $1,000 isn't worth telling on people. My prediction in the future is to stop all of this thieving. They're going to take those incentives up to over that amount, twice or three times that amount, to get people to start talking. Because what's going to happen is people who aren't out here working a productive, hard day's work, people who aren't building anything, they're just going to start taking from stores. And when they can no longer take from stores, they're just going to keep going from house to house and taking from you. So it's time for this stuff to be curbed. It's time for it to stop. It's gotten out of hand. It's enough. Sticky finger syndrome is just not going to stop with these people. And my theory is I'm not saying no snitch is going to go away. What I'm saying is that the incentive to turn you in is going to be high enough that person's going to take it to save their own butt. And history has proven this. If you go back to the 1980s in the black community and the crack epidemic, almost all the drug dealers who they put away, for example, like Freeway Ricky Ross, all the big heads, one of the closest people to them almost always turned them in. And not to say that these incentives will have anything to do with race. They're going to put them out there for everybody. It's just that no snitch for the longest time is the thing that the black community has lived by. And people, I think, are now going to start opening their mouth just to get that money. Now, that's just my theory of how that's going to go down. So that's my two things. Google master planned communities and you'll start to see a little bit of what I'm talking about. Some of them you don't see high-end stores. You see nice clean parks and safe place to live. And when you see them on commercials, you don't readily recognize them. You just think, oh, this is a nice safe place for families. No, what they're doing is setting it up to where they're going to know where you are at all times. And as I've said in a previous video, that social credit system's coming. And people who ain't getting down with that get down, when they get ready to start stealing from you, they're not going to have any qualms about what you worked for. As I said, when you watch the news, disproportionately they're playing a certain group of people, okay? You know who you are. And because you act that way, you're costing people in your own communities and from your own communities jobs. Don't play stupid about it. You can call me all the names you want. There's a reason why when people ask for $15 an hour minimum wage, they put in kiosk. And I know at some point someone non-black is going to see this, but the reason I address it to the black community is because the no snitch is why some of our crimes from our end have not been solved. The United States is changing. Y'all better get on board. And it's a bumpy ride. because it's not going to get any better. I strongly believe that they're allowing these groups to get away with it simply because they know they're going to rebuild those stores that are closing in neighborhoods where that overhead can be controlled. And your access to it is going to be based on your social credit score and your responsible social standing within society. In other words, your ability to not take from others because you're selfish. Because thieving at the end of the day is the ultimate selfish act. It encompasses everyone. Because prices go up for everyone because of these flash mobs. When they went into Beverly Hills boldly, that's when I said, yep, it's going to change soon. And by 2030, that's my prediction. All right. Thank y'all for listening. Just say what you got to say in the comments. Be negative if you want. I don't care. Thank you so much for stopping by, listening to my theory. Take care.